Our first terrifying story comes from Liam, who is from Los Angeles County, California. I'm going to read his story to you now. Back when I was 20, during the summer before my senior year of college, I landed an internship at a financial services firm downtown. It wasn't anything fancy, mostly data entry, spreadsheets, and sitting in front of a computer all day, but it paid decently and looked good on a resume. There were 7 other interns crammed into an open office section with rows of cubicles that barely offered any privacy. Out of the 7, 5 were easygoing and fun to work with, typical college students who didn't take the internship too seriously. Another intern, Eric, was intense, quiet, and treated the internship like life or death, always typing furiously, barely talking. But the 7th intern, Alex, was different. When I first met him, he seemed normal, maybe a bit awkward. He was tall, thin, pale, with a messy mop of dark hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in a while. What unsettled me wasn't just his appearance, it was the way he acted around me. At first, it was subtle. He'd appear at my cubicle, lean over the divider so only his head was visible, tilt it slightly, and grin with this weird frozen smile. Then he'd speak in a deliberately strange, almost creepy voice, saying things like, "Working hard or hardly working, Ronnie," in a slow, unnatural tone. I laughed awkwardly, pretending it was funny, but deep down it felt off. The first couple of times, I told myself he was just quirky, trying too hard to stand out. Some interns are awkward after all, and I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Over the next few weeks, Alex's visits became more frequent. Every single day, at least once, his head would slowly rise above my cubicle wall, that same stretched, frozen grin plastered across his face. He'd start strange conversations that often made no sense, sometimes muttering random phrases, other times making jokes that weren't funny, all in that same soft, taunting voice. Honestly, the closest recent comparison I can make is the way Charlie Hunnam's character Ed Gein spoke in one of his roles. The other interns noticed it too, but most of them just laughed it off, thinking Alex was being deliberately weird to lighten the mood. I also think they assumed Alex and I had built some kind of rapport that nobody else had. But the truth was, it felt like I was his personal audience. I wasn't treating him any differently, he just seemed fixated on me. Then, about 6 weeks into the internship, something happened that truly freaked me out. I was at home eating dinner when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. I normally wouldn't answer unknown calls, but since I was expecting a delivery confirmation, I picked it up. When I said hello, there was a brief silence, then Alex's voice came through, that same creepy tone he used at work. He said, "The tide's coming in. Pull your boat out of the water." The voice was louder this time, almost a yell, dragging the words like he was reciting a riddle. Then he burst into this insane, unhinged laugh before hanging up. My skin crawled, not just because of the call, but because I'd never given Alex my number. I texted the number back asking if it was him, but the message said undelivered. Looking the number up, I realized it was a landline. That's when I truly started to feel scared. The next Monday, I went to the office and asked our supervisor, Martin, if interns could access employee phone numbers. He looked confused and told me interns didn't have access to that information. On top of that, Alex had been let go the previous week for not doing any work and ignoring multiple warnings. I told Martin about the call. He seemed surprised. A few of the other interns overheard and nodded,
saying they had always felt Alex was creepy too. For the next week, I stayed on edge, expecting another incident, but nothing happened. Life returned to normal at the office, or so I thought.
I thought maybe that was the end of it, until one early Friday morning around 5 a.m., I woke up to a noise outside and went to peek through the window. Standing in my backyard, halfway between the trees and the porch light, was a figure. Even in the dim gray light, I recognized him immediately. Alex. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. He just stood there, thin and pale, with that messy hair and perfect posture. Then I heard him call my name in that same creepy sing-song voice he'd always used at work. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911, but before I could dial, he tilted his head back and let out that same loud, hysterical laugh from the phone call. It sounded completely detached from reality. I shouted through the window that I was calling the police and to get off my property. He stood there for a moment longer, then finally turned and walked away, still laughing as he disappeared into the trees. I called the police immediately, but since he hadn't technically broken in or made a direct threat, there wasn't much they could do. After that morning, I never saw Alex again. At work, in town, nowhere. Life slowly returned to normal. I finished the internship, even accepted a permanent position offer from my boss, though a small part of me felt unsettled. Over time, I convinced myself he must have been dealing with some mental illness or social disorder. That was the only way I could make sense of how someone went from quiet and awkward to standing in my backyard at 5 a.m., laughing like a lunatic. Years later, I've moved on. I didn't take that company job, found a different career, and rarely think about Alex anymore. But sometimes, just the thought of that night, his frame in my backyard, and that laugh in the dark, still sends chills down my spine. Fear is about to deepen. Before that, are you in a well-lit place? How scared are you? Let us know in the comments. New viewers, subscribe now. Our second story for today was sent in by Noah. He's from Cook County, Illinois. I'll be reading the entire story out loud for you. I was 17 when this all happened, working my first real job at a local grocery store in our quiet Vermont town. Everyone knew everyone, and usually nothing ever happened. At first, I liked the job. It was simple, most coworkers were friendly, and I quickly found a rhythm with the cashiers and some of the stock workers. During slow hours, when there weren't many customers, we'd gather near the front of the store to chat about random things, TV shows we watched, joking about the older employees, or complaining about customers. It was one of the few times I felt like I wasn't just standing behind a register, staring at a screen or blank wall all day. The shifts depended a lot on who the supervisor was. Younger supervisors meant more relaxed vibes. People would be on their phones, chatting, socializing. But then there was one coworker I didn't know well at first, a guy named Sean. He was 24, a little awkward, with hair in that in-between growing out phase, and worked in the dairy section. We barely interacted at work. He was quiet and polite, and I honestly didn't think much of him. Most people just nodded at him when passing, and he did the same. Eventually, I was added to a coworker group chat, and Sean was in it. At first, it seemed harmless, a chat for work stuff and jokes among the younger employees. But then,
Sean started messaging me directly. Initially, it was casual, asking about shifts or if I could cover certain days. At first, Sean's messages seemed harmless. He asked about my personal life, what music I liked, what I did after work, even little things like how I spent my weekends. But over the next few weeks, it became clear he was trying to get closer. Sometimes he called me cute in ways that made me uncomfortable. Occasionally, he'd make flirty jokes that didn't feel appropriate. I was only 17 and he was older. I didn't think anyone else at work knew what was happening. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe he just didn't know how to behave around girls my age. But his persistence made me uneasy. He'd comment on things I posted online, send messages late at night, and generally made me hyper-aware of my surroundings. Then, one day at work, we were all gathered near the front chatting about TV shows. I mentioned a series in conversation, not realizing Sean was paying attention. Out of nowhere, he asked, "You like Stranger Things, right?" I froze. I hadn't told anyone at work about that show. How did he know? I just nodded and brushed it off, trying not to show how unsettled I was. He smiled awkwardly and went back to the dairy section, but that cold feeling in my stomach lingered. A few nights later, lying in bed, I heard a soft scraping sound against my bedroom window. At first, I thought it was just the wind or a branch brushing the glass, but it happened again, a distinct tapping. I peeked through the blinds, expecting to see Sean, but nothing was there. The memory of his question at work haunted me. It was clear he had been watching me more closely than I realized. A couple of days later, he texted me again. This time, I made it clear I wasn't interested. Almost immediately, he replied, "Okay, good luck changing your address." That's when I knew for certain he was stalking me. I saved all the messages, took screenshots, and reported everything to my manager and the local police. After I showed the messages to my manager, he was visibly shaken. He told me not to worry and said the situation would be handled immediately. That same day, my dad and I went to the local police station to file a report. I showed them the texts and explained everything: the messages, the comment about my address, and the tapping on my bedroom window. The officers took it seriously and began the process for a restraining order. The next day at work, Sean was called into the manager's office. He never came back. I later found out he had been fired on the spot. Knowing that should have made me feel safer, but it didn't. Even with a restraining order, I kept thinking about how easily he'd found information about me. A piece of paper didn't feel like enough protection if someone was truly unstable. For weeks, I checked the locks on our doors repeatedly, avoided answering calls from unknown numbers, and stopped sharing details about my routine with anyone outside my family. At night, I'd lie awake, convinced I heard something outside my window. Slowly, as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the fear began to fade. There were no more messages, no strange sounds, no sightings. The restraining order seemed to work. Eventually, life returned to normal. I became more comfortable leaving the house alone and stopped constantly checking over my shoulder. But the experience changed me. It made me more aware of how quickly uncomfortable behavior can escalate and how important it is to trust your instincts. Years later, I live in a different town, work a different job, and don't speak to anyone from that grocery store anymore. But the memory of lying in bed, afraid someone might be outside my window, never fully left. It's a reminder that danger doesn't always look obvious at first. It can start with casual messages, harmless questions, and small boundary crossings. Fear is about to deepen. Before that, are you in a well-lit place? How scared are you? Let us know in the comments. New viewers, subscribe now. I was 26 when I started working at a small insurance office in a quiet part of Pennsylvania. The kind of office tucked behind a strip mall with one long row of desks, flickering fluorescent lights, and the constant smell of coffee. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and I liked most of the people there. The job could get boring, especially on slow days when the phones barely rang, but it was easy money. I usually worked the day shift, but on this particular Friday, I was scheduled to help close up the office. We were behind on filing a batch of client records, and there was a big storm warning for the afternoon, one of those storms that take over the entire local news broadcast. I woke up that morning and immediately noticed the sky was dark and gray. By 3 p.m., the rain started pouring so heavily that you couldn't see the end of the street. Thunder followed soon after, shaking the windows every few minutes. I personally enjoyed the ambiance of the storm. Most employees were allowed to leave early before the weather worsened, but a couple of us volunteered to stay and finish some paperwork. The only other person who stayed was a guy named Tom, who had just started working there 2 weeks prior. He was in his early 30s, tall, quiet, and had a strange, off-putting energy. Not exactly creepy, but definitely unusual.
At first, Tom seemed quiet and harmless. He never said much, but always seemed nearby. If I went to make coffee, he'd show up a couple of minutes later. If I restocked paper, he'd pretend to do the same thing. I assumed he was just socially awkward. By 5 p.m., the storm was in full force. Lightning flashed every few seconds, followed by booming thunder that made the floor vibrate. The office felt emptier than usual, and the constant hum of fluorescent lights was replaced by the sound of rain pelting the windows. Tom sat at his desk a few rows down, typing something that looked like nonsense on his computer. Every time I looked up, he was glancing at me. At first, I tried to focus on my work, pretending not to notice. But after about an hour, I realized he hadn't moved once. Around 6:30 p.m., the power started flickering. Both of us laughed nervously when the lights dimmed, but Tom didn't speak. When the power went out completely, the emergency lights cast a faint orange glow across the office. I suggested maybe it was a good time to leave, but Tom stayed silent, standing near the front door and staring out at the parking lot. I tried calling my boyfriend to let him know I'd be late, but my phone had no signal. The landline was dead too. Every instinct in me screamed that something was wrong. I decided to quietly pack my things and wait for a lull in the storm. When I turned back toward the front, Tom was gone. I decided to head toward the back door, which led to a small parking lot where my car was parked. When I reached it, I realized the handle wouldn't move. It had been chained and padlocked from the inside. We had never done that before. Panic set in. I ducked into the supply closet next to the break room and closed the door quietly, trying to control my breathing. I could hear Tom walking slowly through the office. Then I heard him call my name
in a soft, comforting voice, saying he just wanted to make sure I was safe. I didn't respond. He walked past the closet, and for a few seconds I could see the faint beam of his flashlight under the door. Then it disappeared. Thunder cracked loudly, shaking the building. I waited about 10 minutes, then cautiously opened the door. The hall was empty. I tried the front, but when I turned the corner, I froze. The front glass door had been shattered completely, rain blowing in across the floor. Tom was nowhere in sight. I sprinted to my car in the pouring rain, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I sped home, locked every door, and spent the night shaking and watching the storm. The next morning, I called the office to tell my manager what happened. At first, he didn't believe me until he saw the broken glass himself. The police were called, took my statement, and said they'd look into it. Tom had vanished. His car was still in the lot, unlocked, with the keys, phone, and wallet inside. Security cameras had been manually turned off before the outage, so someone had planned this. No one ever saw him again. Even though nothing else happened after that, I couldn't return to work in that office. The trauma was too real. I quit a month later. Years have passed, but the memory of the storm, the locked doors, and Tom's eerie presence is something I'll never forget.
That's where we end today's terrifying incident. But the deeper the night gets, the thicker the mystery becomes. Don't miss more spine-chilling horror stories like this. Subscribe or follow right now. Stay with us, if you dare.